Imagine being hired to create a simple design only to find yourself creating a dozen more versions, endless revisions, and extra project work, all without additional pay. Scope creep is the sneaky villain robbing you of your time, money, and sanity. But what if I told you there is a way to stop it in its tracks? In this video, I'll discuss a real-life horror story about a fellow graphic designer who faced a scope creep nightmare and emerged wiser. I'll also share 4 battle-tested strategies for protecting your projects, time, and paycheck. Before starting out, if you're new to this channel, my name is Ludovic, and I'm one of the co-founders of Kick-Ass UX. We help graphic designers level up their career by adding UX to their skill set. So whether you want to stay in graphic design, transition to UX, or even start your own business, our mission is to help you feel more valued where you work and give you the skills to get paid more. So let's dive into the issue of scope creep and what you can do about it. Scope creep is when a project that was supposed to be this size ends up being this size. This can happen often, especially when the team isn't aligned on the exact goals and deliverables at the beginning of a project. To see how this plays out, consider this real story from a graphic designer. This designer was hired to create a logo and brand identity package for a startup with a budget of $3,500. The original scope included 10 initial logo concepts, 2 rounds of logo revisions, a brand style guide, and business card designs. However, after presenting the initial concepts, the client started requesting additional items beyond the agreed scope. 15 more logo variations, over 10 rounds of revision instead of the 2 in the contract, designs for letterhead and PowerPoint templates. Constant delays and excessive feedback from multiple stakeholders extended the project timeline. What was initially scoped for 60 hours took over 100 hours. Despite the $3,500 budget, the designer lost money due to the extra unpaid work caused by the scope creep. So how do you combat it? I've used 4 methods in my design career that have helped me lessen scope creep issues. Let's dive into the first method. One of the biggest mistakes many graphic designers make is to wait to show their work during one grand reveal. The problem is that you may put a ton of time and effort only to find out that they don't like something. Instead, it's more efficient to follow a human-centered feedback approach, as you'd see in UX, and have mini loops of feedback. Once you have something small to show, get feedback from your clients, even if it's only a sketch or wireframe. Make sure they like the direction. Keep checking in throughout the process so you don't get surprised and everyone is on the same page. This brings us to the second method you can use to lessen scope creep. Imagine coming to a client meeting with direct customer quotes showing how your design improved the product, made it easier to understand, or had some other positive outcome. Imagine having data to back up that your designs are the right ones to move forward with. This can become your reality if you consider conducting user research by talking to customers about your deliverables. When you have something to show, get scrappy and reach out to customers. Work with colleagues on your team and list customers willing to provide feedback about your work. Talk with customers and show them your designs. Ask open questions and write down their answers. You can also use a product like Listener to recruit people in your audience for surveys, interviews, or other types of feedback. Show your clients their feedback in a presentation or document. That way you can show them what their customers say about your work. At the end of the day, customers' opinions will matter more to stakeholders because they are the ones making the purchase. By showing your clients real feedback from customers, you can eliminate some, if not all, of the guesswork that goes into graphic design. This makes your client less likely to ask for more because they've seen the quantitative and qualitative data that your work will satisfy customers. The third way to lessen scope creep is a design thinking method I've used countless times to get everyone on the same page. It's a document we create with all project stakeholders at the beginning of a project. It includes a few simple steps to gain clarity on the problem we're trying to solve and what outcomes we would like to see. It's a more UX-focused exercise, but it can be used in graphic design too. This is called framing the problem. The first step is to define the general problem you're solving from the business and user perspectives. Based on what you already know about the problem, write the business problem you're solving. If you're working on a digital product, this could be lower conversions, lower user retention, or a missing feature that other competitors have. For many graphic designers, this will likely be a user acquisition or conversion problem, but it could be something else. Work with people in your team to identify the core business issue you're solving for. Then consider the problems customers are facing and how they feel during the experience. You can read product reviews, participate in forums, or even talk to real users to learn more about how they feel about this problem. For a digital product, this typically concerns usability principles like how hard it is to use or understand. For many graphic designers, this will likely be around a lack of clarity or connecting your images or message with a customer. For step 2, you will create a design questions, also known as a how might we question. How might we is critical. How implies this problem is solvable. Might implies there are many possible ways to solve the problem. And we implies that we will all work together to solve the problem. You fill in the following sentence. How might we insert goal you're trying to have on users? Within a graphic design context, this might be, how might we increase conversions for this Facebook ad campaign? Or, how might we create a memorable and clear logo for this type of audience? The third step is to describe the specific impact you hope to have on the business and users when you solve the problem. For example, on the business side, maybe you want to see increased engagement with the new feature, or increased revenue, or increased product stickiness, which means customer retention. PS. As discussed earlier, this is a great time to tie your design work to business outcomes. For the user side, it might be increased satisfaction, or that users perceive the experience to be more intuitive, or some other benefit for them. Step number 4. State your assumptions associated with the problem. These are things you believe to be factually the case with your product. Stating your assumptions does two things. Rather than keeping this information in your head, it lists what you and other teammates believe to be certain and allows you to analyze it from a more unbiased viewpoint. This helps you decide whether or not those are things you need to validate through research. In a graphic design context, this might be related to the types of fonts and colors you will eventually use. But it could go much deeper and be related to specific details about your target audience, different campaigns, the platforms you're targeting, whether it's for physical or digital experiences, etc. In a UX context, this looks different. For example, let's imagine you're working for Airbnb and working on a new feature that helps people plan trips with others using Airbnb. One of our assumptions might be that we believe people expect to be able to split the payment with others using Airbnb. Another one would be that users expect to be able to chat within the Airbnb platform to plan trips together. Listing this out helps us evaluate whether or not we need to do research on a specific problem. What's important is that we only list things we believe. So if, for example, we weren't sure if users expected to split payments, we wouldn't include that. Instead, that would become a research question. This leads me to step 5, where you list all the questions you must answer to solve the problem correctly. What don't you know about the problem? What do you need to learn to be able to move forward? You'll need to answer all of these questions to effectively design the solution to the problem. Using the same Airbnb example about planning trips with others, you may be uncertain if people would want to split payments. Or maybe you're unsure whether people would communicate within Airbnb, or if they would use outside communication methods like email or text. Answering that question would help you determine whether you need to build an internal chat tool specifically for communicating with people to plan a trip. The final step is to list all the constraints associated with the project. For example, this could be only 4 weeks to finish the project, or a lack of staffing to accomplish the feature. This is also where you would include all your scope, aka how many concepts, revisions, deliverables, etc. they'll get from you on this project. And by the way, it's a great place to remind them of your work agreement. When you create these documents with your team members, everyone in the room agrees that this is the problem you're solving, and this is what the expected outcome is. Then, anytime someone comes back asking for something outside of the project scope, you can point to the document and say, "That's an interesting idea. And remember the framing the problem document? What you're suggesting here is outside of the project scope." I can't tell you how many times the framing the problem document has saved the day for me. It's truly a magical method for getting everyone on the same page and keeping a project moving in the right direction. The final way to lessen scope creep is the most straightforward. Sign a contract with a work agreement. Ensure to include a section about what happens if you go beyond that scope. You'll want to make sure you over-communicate what you do and keep them in the loop about where you are throughout the project. This is where your communication skills matter a ton. Then, if the client tries to get you to do extra work on top of everything else, you can point to the contract and show them every piece of work you've done so far and how that aligns with your work agreement. Now that we have handled scope creep in this video, you might wonder how to make more money and increase your value as a designer. If so, check out this video.